Hey guys, welcome back to Lyle's Garage. This is going to be episode 4 on the GT750 engine build. If you haven't seen the previous 3 episodes, I recommend you go watch those. Anyways, in this episode, we're going to start off by taking out this oil seal that is for the shift shaft. And then we're going to get right into the water pump. Basically, the first part that has to go in on the rebuild is a water pump, just because it's down lower, and then we can get all our gears set up. Let's go ahead and let's get right in with pulling out this oil seal here. This is usually what an oil seal puller tool looks like. All right, so we got this all set up, and now I can come in and get my puller in here. And I'll just give it some taps. Okay, so we got that out. If we look in here, we can see a bunch of dirt and filth as I almost tripped myself. So what we're going to do now is get in here and get some of that crud out of there. See all that? All right, so I got everything all cleaned up. Whenever I do oil seals, I like to put a little tiny bit of grease in the hole, and just to kind of help get them in there. So the socket needs to be pretty much the same as the outer diameter. So when we tap it, it only hits that metal part on the outer side. And this one is actually probably not the right size also. Oh yeah, 16. That turned out to be the exact size, guys. And there we go. So now we can go ahead and start with our water pump. And the first thing we do with the water pump is we gotta put the water pump in. And the water pump actually will come out of here and go past the case half. So if we have it on the ground, it won't drop in all the way. So I got a cutting board and a scrap piece of wood here that'll raise it up about 1 inch. I'm going to be using a little bit of grease to help the water pump slide into place. And then along the way, I use just regular old assembly lube for all of the moving components as we put them in. Okay, got my water pump. This was rebuilt. If you're interested in the information on how and where I got it and how much it cost, please go back to video number 3 on the engine rebuild, and I discuss all of that. Now, one of the the important things when you put this in is it has this little recess cutout divot where that 10 mil kind of locking bolt goes on the inside. And I'm sure you know what I'm talking about, but in case you don't, when we took it apart, there was this bolt here. And that bolt actually has a little tab that seats into this divot that locks the housing into place. So that way the housing won't spin and only the pump will spin, or the impeller. So what we got to do is find out where that hole is on the top side and mark it, which I've already done for us. So we got this big one here represents where the hole is. And then I got 2 other ones here that are just to kind of help line it up because one wasn't really good enough. So if we look, I got my bold mark there and then my other 2 here. So when I go to put this in, I'm going to line up all 3 of those marks, and that should get me set up pretty well. As I mentioned earlier, I got to put a little bit of grease on, just like with the oil seal. Rubber and metal like to bind up without a lubricant, so it doesn't take a lot. Just get that a little bit on there, like so. And I'm going to even rub a tiny bit in this hole down here. Last thing we'd want is one of those O-rings to rip or bind up and us not know it, and then put the whole motor back together. So now we got all our stuff lined up. Don't think I'm going to need it, but we'll get the dead blow out. I think I can probably finagle it. One of my pins just fell out. Boom. So let's go to the other side and see if it's pressed in the right spot. Yeah, close enough. Now we can try our hardest to get this out of this little bag. Come on, little baggie. Just let me have you. I don't know why. When I have a camera on, everything kind of has to go a little bit wrong. It's part of the fun of doing all of this videography stuff. Okay, so that's a 10 mil. We're going to get the little driver thing so we can drive them, I guess, right? I'm going to kind of twist it on there tight because I sure would hate for that bastard to come out. Okay, I'm going to get it on here and get a little bit more. There we go. Really want it to bite that aluminum washer. That'll help it stay. Maybe. Okay, guys, we got the water pump in. We're going to do the impeller next. On my test fits for the impeller, it was too snug. This is a brand new part, so I'm not certain if, if it was just made a little bit undersized. So I took a pencil with some emery cloth and I kind of just ran it through there with some fine emery cloth to kind of polish the inside. When I was test fitting it, it was actually carving out shavings, and I was real worried about the shavings getting into the bearing. So we got that, so that way it kind of goes on without so much of a fight. I'm going to put on our circlip real quick. That way it locks in that water pump. And I think we need the straight ones that squeeze, right? Big squeeze. Okay, so I'm going to take that, try to get him on in there. And usually when I get them in, I like to double check and make sure. I mean, that's a huge one. There's no way that's not in, but I just want to make sure, because once this is closed up, I don't ever want to have to open this ever again. Okay, so now we're going to go on to putting on the impeller. I'm going to put a little bit of lube inside of this, just so it doesn't bind up on its way down. And I'm probably going to have to block you real quick with my head. Does that look right? Yep, that looks right. I don't get what that was just sticking on. Huh. Alright, well, we need to get this down a little bit more. So I'll do that. Now we got our little tiny circlip that holds on the impeller. And this one is the kind that has to be opened, so we need the opposite pair of pliers. We need the spready ones. Sometimes those posts are just almost too big. So just like that. Again, once you finish one of these circlips, you just gotta kind of make sure that she's in the groove. And then we'll spin this and just make sure. It feels a little tight to me. But, you know, what do I know? This is my first rodeo. First time doing a GT750. If you guys want to see some of my other restorations, just go to my channel and check out the previous stuff I've created. Lots of different good videos out there. Okay, next up, guys, we're going to go ahead and put Mr. Snail Shell on. I got to locate the hardware. And when I took this off, it came with a gasket. And I believe my new set has a new gasket. So I'll go find that. In the meantime, guys, while I'm doing that, why don't you guys do me a favor if you could? Go give a like, subscribe, or comment. I know every YouTube channel's begging for that stuff, but the reason why is once we get a comment, the computer algorithm that's in control of all of my channel's destiny, it goes, oh, somebody liked this, and then it shows it to a few more people. But if nobody gives me comments or likes, then it just buries my channel, and I just go forever with, you know, 100 views instead of 1,000 views. So now you know. Alright everybody, I was not able to find my original hardware that came out of this. And then I went back and tried to look at my video, and I can't even find where I took this off. I believe there were 10 mils that were on there. And anyways, what I was really wanting to find is if it had washers and maybe see what they look like, so maybe it would help me realize where I set them. But anyways, I got these nice socket cap ones. Where's the camera? Right there. And they are the 6 mil diameter with a 1.0 thread, I believe. I was fortunate enough to come up on a whole bunch of new hardware for times like this. It's really amazing. You can just go pick out what's the right size and then go to town. I also picked out a nice washer. I'm not certain of its composite, but yeah, I don't even know. Can you see that? There we go. So I'm actually going to lube these up a little. I know there's a lot of controversy about using the anti-seize. Is that coming in? There we go. On certain things, but I'm a big fan of it. When you go and you take hardware back off, it comes off a lot easier. I have this idea that if you put hardware on dry, that you might get a false read or a false bottom when you're tightening it, when crap starts to pile up. And you think, yep, that's bottomed out, but really you just kind of came up on some burrs. And you got the lube in there, you know, it helps it crank down and torque, I think, a little bit. I think it gets a little snugger under the same amount of inch-pounds than if you didn't have the lube. And, you know, we got different kinds of metals here, so that should help protect from corrosion. Got a stainless steel bolt going into whatever the heck these cases are made out of. Some sort of a poly aluminum primary type flavor. These are all the 5 mils. So you know what I could do is get a drill and trip over that. Oh, I almost said the F word. Why is this pedal always in my freaking way? Let's see, does that even work? No. Okay. All right. Going by hand's cool too. Magic. And I'm probably putting about 8 pounds on that torque wrench there. Yep. And she's good. All right. That's amazing, guys. That's the first gasket. That's the first little bit of jewelry. We got a lot of firsts happening there. All right. The next thing we got to do is the breather little setup. And I'm going to try and set this up a little better for you guys. Okay, guys, welcome back. I'm doing the breather weep line. Is that focused? Yeah. And as I mentioned in a previous video, I wasn't really trusting the old ones that people were selling on eBay. And since they don't make repops on these, I made my own out of a high temp silicone tubing, some nice banjo fittings, and stainless steel hose clamp. And my washers on these aren't nylon. These are actually stainless steel with rubber or silicone seals. So anyways, we gotta get this put back on. And let's see, how's that? Let me move you guys back a little bit. Oops, didn't mean to grab the camera. And while I had the camera off, I actually took this little lock thing for the water pump out, the screw, and I put a little bit of Loctite. I used the thread locker blue stuff, so it's not super severe locked in. And after a little bit of debate about this, I think I am going to use some on this as well. But I'm just going to put it in the holes. That way, maybe I don't mess up the silicone and glue that. Basically, I just really never want to have to come back into this again, especially for something like this. One of these leaking because it came loose, or heaven forbid the hardware comes off and grinds up in the transmission. All right, so I'm gonna keep a little pressure right here as I tighten it so it doesn't try and turn that guy. And we'll get it to where my wristometer says that we're locked in. This one's probably actually gonna just hit himself and keep himself, but I'm gonna get a screwdriver in there maybe, so that way it doesn't pinch up against the silicone. And create a little hole there. Just like that. See if we can't hold on the steel. It's about 40, maybe 30-ish inch-pounds. Okay, as long as we say a good prayer, I think that will be perfect. All right, guys. So now we can start putting all of the goodies back in the case. One of the main things we got to remember is the C-rings. We have 6 C-rings total, I believe, on this bottom half. If there's more or less, then I am totally screwed. The biggest one goes right here. Can we get a shot of this guy? And that's our crank one. And then we got one for our water pump dilly. We got 1, 2 here for the transmission clutch drive shaft, main shaft. And then we have 1, 2 more here for the counter shaft. And that gives us a grand total of 6. Let's just go ahead and put those in. If you don't know what those are for, that's to keep things from shifting laterally. I don't know if that's the right word. Is that left to right-ish? Horizontally? That sounds better. Yeah, because laterally should be up and down like a ladder. Oh, come on, fingers. Don't fail me now. Oh, that was getting embarrassing. So the 2 big ones are going to come back here on the transmission. We got one big guy there, and then we got one big guy there. And basically just got to make sure they're staying below the case cut mark. Don't want them protruding. And those two are the same size. These are the other two transmission ones, and they're the same size as each other. And then this oddball out, this little thick, small one, short and stout teapot here. That's going to go in the water pump, tachometer spindle apparatus. And then we got one of the small ones here, and then just like the big, they stagger and go to the other side. Okay. Next up, we got to put in our shifting forks. Oh, no, we got to get the spindle in next. I think it's called a shift drum. I don't remember. Feel free to comment. Sometimes I work on different bike companies and they call them different things, and then I just like one flavor and I call it that forever. So give me 1 second. I'm gonna go get something to drink, clean up a little bit just so I can not have everything everywhere, and then we'll get right into that. All right, let's do some transmission work. So I tried to get everything kind of set up so we could see. Normally what I would do is for this side where it has this little roller bearing, just kind of get some assembly lube, and we'll get that started with that. When it's got the metal on metal super tight clearance stuff, like when you put the shift drum, can you see this? Yeah. When you put that in, it's going to be super snug in here, and it doesn't really spin a lot, but we need it to move. So we're going to just kind of put some more. There we go. Took 5 drops and finally somebody got in there. This will also help when this thing goes through because it likes to just bite metal and bind. All right, so we got that guy pressed in all the way. Now we're impressed. Okay, no more bad jokes. First one we got to put in is going to be this, I don't know, forward one that has the spring. And this fork, this is the passenger side, and facing the passenger side, mine has this Chevy symbol and this letter J. See that? Anyways, those are gonna be facing the passenger side. So on the left or driver's side, there's nothing. Well, I mean, it's got the spring little buddy here. The spring little buddy goes in with that sleeve on the right. And first thing we do is we just take everything off of here. And I should just tell you, I had already done this, but I put a little bit of oil on this guy and in that hole there because, well, you know, same reasons as before. So we're gonna put this on with that Chevy symbol facing that way. And in this groove right here on the shift drum, right there, that's where that little nipple is gonna go. Okay, and we'll just get him going like that. Now right in that groove, I'm gonna take a little bit of this crud and just trail in a little bit, just so as I'm testing her out later, it's not dry firing, so to speak. Okay, this guy is going with that sleeve on the right, and it goes so that the spring is gonna be locked in to go straight because it's kind of cammed. So basically you just whoop-de-doo him in there, bring this through, and then what I'm going to do is actually get a little bit of lube on there just to make sure when it goes through that spring little thing, it's got some lube. Boom! All the way to his home, but this guy fell out. There we go. Okay. So this lighting is not really the best, is it? I'm sorry, guys. This is all I got. So we'll just press on. Okay. So we got that first part done, no big deal. Then we're gonna take our clutch, which is, I think it's called the main shaft. Anyways, Mr. Clutch Shaft here is easy to see because it has the long, not knurled, what is that called? Oh well, brain fart. It has the clutch thingy. And as you're putting it in, you see this little groove here on this one that slides? That's a little trough for this fork. So we're just gonna start on this side, get this bearing locked in, get that fork in. One of these guys, there we go, almost. This bearing actually is pissing me off a little bit. It wants to come off, but it doesn't want to go back on. Okay, sorry you guys had to see that. Felt like a parent reprimanding their kid in front of the kid's friend there. He needs to be spanked, I says. So as we're kind of looking here, I'm checking out on this bottom part down here. Can you see what I'm talking about? On the bottom, and we're looking to see if there's any gaps, and there's not. We are snuggied. They're all good to go. All right, let's press on. Okay, so next up we got the next set of the shift forks. And again, I got everything lubed up so that way it's ready to accept it. Let's make sure we just give it a little drop in there. So I don't think that which way the axle goes in matters, but I felt like this one was previously that way, so I'm going to put him back the way he came. Okay, don't worry, I'll get to which one goes where in a second as soon as I can get this off. So everything gets tough and my hands get greasy. So this first one has the Chevy and the letter D on mine. Not letter, but the symbol. I don't really know what that is. And it's going to face the left, but it goes on the right. And as I'm doing it, I need to put it into that nipple, into that part of the shift log of love, or shift drum. And then our next one says SI, faces. So the letters are facing, or the marks are facing each other. And if we look, there's 3 troughs on the shift drum. It's kind of hard to tell, but here's 1, here's 2, and here's 3. This one's already taken by this shift fork, right? So this little nipple here has to go in that one. And this nipple for this one is going to go into that one. Wow, this is really hard when I'm looking at the screen at the same time. Yeah. All the way in, just like that. Okay. We might not have put that shift log into a position that's really beneficial, but that's okay. We can turn it later with a screwdriver. All right, now we have our counter shaft, and I believe it's called a counter shaft because it's the opposite way of the rotation of the rest of the mechanisms. And as before, we have, oh my, I gotta zoom out. Yeah. Sorry, the camera is actually facing the other way, so I can't see the screen. This trough here and this trough here on these 2 movable guys is where those shift forks are going to line up with. Before we put them in, make sure we got our C-rings. Okay, now we can just go ahead. We're going to start to bring it on down by lining up forks into those first. And then we're going to spin to get the bearings in. Oops, that one's not in the right spot. Down. And we check everywhere, make sure we're locked in on those C-rings. This one's got a tiny bit of gap. Oh, some nasty dirt tried to jump in there. See that? We got a neighbor with a white dog that just sheds like crazy. The whole backyard, every week it's filled up with that crap again. All right, there we go, ladies and gents. Okay, we're gonna actually do some shift action here to just make sure. But before we do that, I'm gonna sprinkle some love in here. Alright, that should kind of help everything just flow. Yeah, we're gonna need a big old flathead. Okay, so we got this spinning. It's not gonna turn any more that way. Let's try this. 1, 2, 3, 4. So far I can only get it to go through 4. 1. 2, 3, 4. 5. Oh, yay. That one's actually first gear. There's second gear. There's third gear. There's fourth gear. And there's fifth gear. Oh, hallelujah. Okay, so we got all that in there now. All right, the next thing we're gonna put on is the kick starter mechanism. And then we also have like our oil pump, and we got the water pump stuff. And then we don't necessarily have to do it now, but we could put in some of that stuff. We also have a couple pieces that I got to put in too later, like this little side window bearing cover. Okay, as I stated earlier, I leave these all lubed up with assembly lube, so as they sit they don't rust over and whatnot. So this guy wasn't rebuilt, but I did take it completely apart and clean it and put it back together. So here's actually where these two little dowels go. I don't know, I think these are called knock pins. I usually call them dowels. So anywho, we got one there and one there. I'm gonna put a tiny bit of oil. It just doesn't seem right to have everything dry in here. And that will also help them kind of stay stuck in there. Yeah! You gotta be careful though, because sometimes too much lube make it so they don't go in, and then you push them in and they actually will bounce back out if the air doesn't come out. Okay. As you're putting this back together, obviously that hole there is what's going to lock that in there. And we got another hole here for this one there. And this little guy has to stop at that right there. So there's that one. Come on. This one's gonna be a little turd. Maybe I put this on backwards, huh? Yep. In the air. Alright guys, that's looking marvelous. Yep. Alrighty, next piece we have this little oil guy here. And we gotta get some lube in there for sure. I'm gonna use the thicker one because it kind of has a little bit of a dimple to kind of hold some lube in there. And it's got a washer here on the top that I've left here. Okay, so we got all that in. That's how that goes. Bing, bang, boom. Now we can come on over here. This has also been oiled, but I see one of those freaking daggone white hairs from the neighbor dog. So I don't think that's bad, but I don't want anything in my motorcycle. Okay, so if we look on this one, it has this dowel, or what was the actual name? I just said it a minute ago. Knock pin. It has the actual knock pin cut in half, and in case you don't remember from taking yours off, it goes with the bearing on that side. That's kind of like the other C-ring for this side. Kind of a neat way to do it, you know. All right, so this guy just goes off of the water pump, huh? Goodness, that feels stiff. Anybody else doing one of these motors, got your water pump rebuilt? Let me know. Is your water pump, does it spin freely, or does it take, you know, a little nudge to spin it? Because the one I got is just feeling stiff. Stiffy McStiffersons. Okay, so we got that all squared away. Obviously, after we got everything done, we can go later and put the water pump sprocket on. And I think, yeah, we got this little guy. We can just go ahead and throw up here right now. I got this looking so nice. Yeah, where's the camera at? It like has a little Suzuki emblem or something right there. It says RCA 473 210. Yeah, I don't know. Sorry, that's not the best footage, but it looks nice is what I'm telling you. So that guy's just gonna go right there, bing bang boom. I guess we don't need to put anything in these bearings because they'll all get oiled. I think the only other thing I gotta find is I gotta go dig out this O-ring right here. And it looks like we're gonna have a couple knock pin, the hollow dowels. I'm just saying that off looking at it. I'll have to actually look at what I got left over. Well, this is exciting. We got empty bags. Things are happening. Okay, let me find the O-ring and I'll check out the knock pins situation. These might also, yeah, I can see it. They're actually already on the lid. So the top case half has these. I never took them out, I guess. I'm gonna go find that O-ring and then we'll get that on. And then I think we can go ahead and start working on the crank. All right. So obviously our crankshaft has this tooth gear which has to go in that area. So if you were concerned about how it went back for some reason, I'm just going to start by setting her in there for now. And then basically we got to start by making sure these seals go in the right way. And this out one likes to not go in his home, so that's no bueno. Okay, we got the C-ring in there. And none of our bearings have gone home yet. So there is a little dimple punch mark on the opposite side of all of these So that makes it a little bit more easy, buddy. You stay in there. It seems all the weight is sitting on this one right here. Ah, I see. The bearing itself is grabbing the C-ring. I'm having him over for dinner. Okay, I gotta make sure this little metal splash thing is right. Yeah. This one's all the way in, and this one is not yet all the way in. Okay, we're gonna do some whapping. See what we can see. Yeah, that definitely seated. Well, I'm pretty convinced that the crank is actually all in correctly. So I'm gonna go ahead and push on and get the top half and put it on. Before you do yours, just make sure you got that O-ring. Make sure you got this little blanked out plate here, the bearing cover. I put a little bit of the silicone, the RTV Permatex stuff on there, so it'll definitely hold while I'm setting everything up. We got to put the case half on slowly, making sure that we got the connecting rods coming through the holes. We got to make sure this oil pump shaft goes through. Got to make sure this dowel goes in right. Just a lot of pieces that all got to come together, right? Everybody, so we're good to go. One thing I wanted to point out, that there is this little thing here that I can't remember what that part's called, but that's where that water pump is gonna snug up into, and need that to be a little lubey just to make sure everything goes in right. And yeah, we got to make sure we got our 2 dowel pin things. And I think we're good to go now. I blew everything out with the air compressor. Sorry, I gotta have the fan on. It's getting a little hot in here, so if you're hearing that noise, apologies. All right, as stated before, we got these 3 and this guy. So my plan is I'm gonna start over here and get the connecting rods peeking through. Like so. And then I can put my attention back here. Something's happening that's not supposed to be. I feel a bind somewhere. Okay, let's get the sealant off my thumbs. Come on back here and we'll give a little look, see what's going on. Yeah. Yeah. I don't see what it's getting bound up on right now. Is anybody out there? I feel like it's this oil pump thing. And it was. Okay. So the oil pump Needs some lube too, huh? Oh yeah. I almost did it, but then I looked and thought it was too big. But okay, so the oil pump thing, it needs a little bit of lubricant. That's not that big of a deal. We got plenty. Might as well hook that guy up. Yeah, it is flared out there, isn't it? To make that seal. Okay. All right, let's try again. Hey. Okay, I got them. We're getting bound up again. I feel like it's this oil pump. There we go. Oh, she's going places. What else is about this? Nothing, it just needs that. Really? So, as I'm doing this, I'm just checking to make sure nothing is stuck where it's not supposed to be. If we go forcing stuff right now, something could break. But things do tend to fit together snug. So it's important that it all comes down even. If you got the front half down, the back won't go down. So you gotta And I need something to hit because I don't want to hit my beautiful motor, even with this rubber mallet. But I really would like to give a few whaps. Slowly getting there. As you probably saw in the previous video, I kind of separated them all by their gauge. So my crank ones, these are actually all for the head. And then these are all the little 6mm size ones and 8mm. So I'm gonna go ahead and start putting some of those in on time lapse, and then I'll turn it back on in a second. I thought I had finished up the bottom end for you, and well, I found out that I got to go back in and redo it. There's this piece here that I found that actually goes on the inside of the top case half, and it's for splashing oil purposes and distribution of oil. And unfortunately I didn't do it, so I got to open this thing back up. I'm not going to do it on video, but I'll just do it real quick, movie magic style. Magic. And just like that, it's back apart again, and just as I had suspected, I have forgotten the little oil splash thing. This is a reminder right now, guys. Stop and go put yours in. 3 screws, probably some Loctite, and don't forget your O-ring. I got all of the sealant off of the top case half. I gotta go blow it all out, but I got that all cleaned up. That one wasn't so bad. This one I've already kind of taken the big chunks off. Went through and I clogged up some of the areas I don't want all the debris getting, so I can just speed this along. And I think I probably put a little too much on, so maybe a thin smear on both halves, or maybe a little less of a dab on this half would have been more appropriate. So I'm going to go ahead and fast forward and turn this back on when everything's done. Ta-da! So I got everything put back into the case half. Before I did that, I got all of the gasket material off of the mating surface. And then I even went through and I took some isopropyl alcohol on a rag and I just rubbed this stuff down to make sure it's nice and clean and the mating surfaces are all ready to adhere to the goop I'm going to be using. I'm going to be using Honda Bond. It's probably sacrilege to use on a Suzuki, but it's what I got in the house, so that's what I'm using. Um, Basically, I got all of the 6 C-rings in. I made sure the Kickstarter pieces are all in their dowels or knock pins. I got all of the seals lined up in their respective little grooves. Sorry, that might have made you sick moving that fast. And then I got this little piece here on the back of that one seal, that metal retainer. It's got the tang in the hole. Got our C-ring there. So it looks like everything's legit. I got my O-ring, my oil pump drive. So we're going to go ahead and put the Honda Bond on and get the case halves on. And oh yeah, most importantly, I got this thing on, which is the whole reason for this whole trip. And I did use the blue Loctite. Probably should have used the red, but that's what I had. Anyways, I'm going to go ahead and put this all back together and then I'll turn the camera back on. Well, I screwed it up again, everybody. So I went ahead and I had to take it all back apart. Unfortunately, the glue is already dried, so now I'm going to have to take everything back out of the motor and scrape all of the mating surfaces again. Oh, I don't get it, guys. Why am I like this? Anyways, the problem this time was, I guess evidently there's some stupid holes on that shaft for the Kickstarter that are supposed to be facing a certain direction. And of course, when I took it all apart and cleaned it, I didn't know that. Put it back together wrong. Didn't think it was that big of a deal. Anyways, I guess it is. So I'm going to go ahead and fix that and get it sorted. I'll show you guys when I calm down a little. All right, everybody. I apologize for my grumpy demeanor on the previous clip. It's been about 2.5 hours. I'm kind of ashamed to admit. That's about how long it took me of working nonstop to get through all this and get back to this position again. This time around, I've checked all the C-rings and the O-ring is in. And the one thing that I wasn't really aware of before is this hole has to be facing directly up at 12 o'clock. This hole will be at 11 o'clock if it's correct. I would have never thought of it, but I kept playing with the Kickstarter and I couldn't understand how it was going to work. My brain just can't understand it. So I came over here and I started wondering if I had put it together wrong. So there's a paragraph here. If you're watching this to do your own, hit pause and then take a picture of the screen or a screenshot of that and read that thoroughly. Basically, I'll give you the long and short. Just the short rather, is there's a piece right here that has this little tab that's on this shaft. It's splined to go on the spline shaft right there. And that basically has to come up and hit that little bump stop right when that hole is facing at 12 o'clock, like I just showed. If you took this all apart and cleaned it like I did and just threw it back together willy-nilly, you might have done it wrong. That's basically why I had to redo everything. So now I'm all set. If we look at, I got my little cam there. And right when it comes around and it hits the stop right here, that's at 12 o'clock, which puts that at about 11 o'clock. And it's currently about 3 o'clock. So we got everything all checked. Got my crank all checked, got the seals on the end in the grooves. I got this one seal with the metal shield piled into that groove down there. We got our C-ring right there. We got these seals all smashed up against the bearing and not onto the crank. We got our O-ring. I think everything is all set. Okay, guys, I'm going to go ahead and movie magic this together, and then I'll show you when it's all done. Abracadabra. Well, guys, everything finally came together, literally and figuratively. I got it all put back together. I even got this really fancy drain plug down there put on. And I don't have too much stuff coming out in between the case halves. So just enough to let me know that it is indeed sealed, but not copious amounts like prior. I figured you guys probably wanted to get a look at where all of the battery strap and the little wire holders go. So the battery strap is 22 right there. And if we come on over here, you can see the numbers. If you need to take a screenshot, go right ahead. But there's all the numbers for the lowercase. And here's your numbers for the top. I used these when I was putting when I was doing the torque sequence, just because a lot of times it's easier to find the number here first. If you look here, 14 and 10 are going to be where those curly Q wire holders go. If you look over on the other side, 8 is where that long half cylinder oil line holder goes, and 13 is going to end up being a copper washer. So I had to order one. It's here. I just got to put it on still. Probably do that off camera. And that's where all of those tough to find pieces went. As far as the torque sequence goes, you got to follow the order 1 through 33. And here's your torque specs. On the first trip all the way around, I used my Craftsman power ratchet and just zip them in until they just start to hit, like hand tight, basically all 33. And then I went back and I got my torque wrench out. And for all of the big, like head bolt ones, I started off the first round only going to like 17. And then after I went back around all 33, I came back around again and I went to, I think, 27. And then same with these. I started off maybe the first round at 10, and then I went back and did 15. This I did 5, and then I went back and did like 7. And I actually finished off with hand tight on that because my torque wrench doesn't tend to work too well on the smaller stuff. Anyways, I know that's a ton of information, guys. I hope this helps you out on your builds, and I hope that you remember all of those pieces the first time around and maybe learn from some of my errors. That's fine. Thanks for watching the video, guys. Good luck to all your stuff, and I'll see you guys in the next episode where we start to fill in all of these areas. Take care.